to Crypto Legends Podcast.
Following the success of our Crypto Legends live events in London and Amsterdam, which you can check on our Fiat Republic YouTube channel, we have switched up Season 2 to be panel discussion, getting you the greatest insights from a range of crypto leaders on every theme relevant in the world of Web 2.5 and Web 3. But every now and then, we get a guest and a platform that are too special to not focus on. Today is such a day. I'm excited to have a very special guest with us, Lukas Enzersdorfer, the Deputy CEO of Bitpanda and the CEO of Bitpanda Technology Solutions. You may have heard of Bitpanda, a leading crypto exchange based in Europe and servicing the globe, that have expanded their services by white labeling their platforms to banks and fintechs. Lukas and I have known each other for quite some time. He's a true crypto legend. And I can't wait to hear everything about how he got into crypto, the Bitpanda story, how they got into B2B, and how banks and fintech can help crypto break into the mainstream. But before we begin, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and even like the video if you enjoy what you see. Lukas, it's a pleasure to have you to this new Crypto Legends episode. So we are lucky today, everybody, to have Lukas Enzersdorfer, Deputy CEO of Bitpanda and the CEO of Bitpanda Technology Solutions to join this episode and tell us everything about his career, Bitpanda, as well as Bitpanda Technology Solutions and his whole vision for crypto industry and how it becomes mainstream. So to get started, Lukas, maybe could you tell us a bit about our background, about your background, how you got introduced to crypto?
Sure. Thank you very much for being here today. Really great chance. I think regarding my background, I started to get into crypto, I think it was in 2013 actually, by some friends who back then started to be curious about Bitcoin and were actually getting into the space and also made me very curious. As I personally am coming from the traditional financial service industry, I worked at a couple of different banks and also was in strategy consulting actually. I was always curious about the use cases of blockchain technology in the banking and financial service sector. So therefore, combining crypto services, blockchain technology, and my personal enthusiasm for financial services was in the end what brought me then in 2018 to Bitpanda, where I'm now since more than 5 years. And yeah, it's still a lot of fun, and I think that's the most important topic if you think about what you do for every day in the end.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It must have been quite a journey, right? To start in 2018 at Bitpanda. It was just after the 2017 boom. But equally, it was still very early days.
Exactly. We have been back then 60 people, and nowadays we are more than 700. So yeah, a hell of a ride, I would say.
I would love to touch upon your banking experience to start with, because as you mentioned, you were working in consulting, but also in banking back in the day. You were the head of department of digitalization and innovation at Raiffeisen Bank. And when today we hear of digitalization, it's almost synonymous with crypto and tokenization. But in 2016, you were working on building omnichannel banking. Can you describe a little bit the innovations at the time? And is there a through line to Web3 projects today?
Sure. I think the important topic, if we look into banking, is since 2010, so the aftermath of actually the financial crisis, especially in Europe. The main topic for banks from 2010 onwards was on the one side cost cutting, and then they realized very fast that process automation is a good way to cost cut, and also something which supports them in building a more modern offering. And it was also the time in 2012, 13, 14, 15 when the neobanks, N26, Revolut, and so on have grown very much in Europe and actually also got a lot of attention. Why? Because the user experience was completely modern and new. So I think the main topic in this around a 10-year period was digitalization was a lot about building customer experience first in an online for online channels, and then they expanded it across their normal sales channels because every universal bank realized that, hey, what are we going to do with the branches where people still sometimes come? And then they created this topic of omni-channel banking, where in the end it's a lot about how can a customer get different touch points with the same company, the bank, and still have the same experience. And I think that's a relevant part back then. So I think especially in 2016, 17, 18, banks were very, very hesitating when it doesn't matter for what crypto and blockchain topic. They all were looking into the technology a little bit, but not really seriously. And I think that's the big change when we now fast forward to 2023, where we are suddenly in a situation, especially in Europe, with a approved regulatory framework, that banks are much more interested into that space of crypto and blockchain technology.
Yeah, actually, while you are explaining that, it made me think a little bit that omni-channel banking and digitalization was definitely, I would say, a pull from customers, right? Like customers wanting it and like banks needing to adapt. While in the end, crypto has been more kind of a push in the sense that early adopters that now need to convert more and more people. So it has been kind of a different approach that you have had over your career. I would love to understand what you brought from those banking days into your Bitpanda experience and how it's helped making Bitpanda successful.
Sure. I think large banks are the complete opposite of a fast-paced and scaling environment, meaning what we at Bitpanda do. However, financial service industry is financial service industry. And I personally really have to say that I think even that the roots of crypto and blockchain were coming from payment use cases independently of central bank money. We now in 2023 see very clearly that a lot of use cases for blockchain or for tokenization of crypto and blockchain is within the financial service industry. For example, the topic of tokenizing assets and asset classes, the topic of crypto as an own self-standing asset class, which is high risk, high yield. On the payment side, the topic of stablecoins, central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. So suddenly there are a lot of all different use cases, which normally is, and also nowadays is now, becoming more and more financial service industry with all the regulatory frameworks around that. And I think that actually is what was also something I always laughed that even that the incumbent or the development of incumbent banks is very, very slow moving and kind of from a completely different age of technology. They now need to move because blockchain and crypto has shown how fast financial markets actually should happen, meaning 24/7 trading and 365 days a week or a year actually. So stuff which is super important to bring modern technology to a very, very old school industry.
Yeah. And actually, I'm looking forward to touching a bit more upon those topics when we talk about Bitpanda technology solutions and what you're doing basically for such players. But before going into it, I would love to touch upon Bitpanda itself. What I believe we could say is that one of the greatest challenges for any crypto provider is managing both trust and stability on one end, and on the other end, providing excitement and differentiation. Can you tell us a bit about Bitpanda mission and how you balance this task of trust versus innovation?
I think the important topic to understand is that Bitpanda has one mission. It's about the vision, especially simplifying wealth creation. So it's for us always important to give everyone the ability and the chance to build up wealth long term. That can be mass market retailers, young people, but also elder people. That can be businesses, simply anyone who actually wants to do that. And the important part in that regards is that for us, trust is very, very important. And you can only build trust across these customers and user groups when you play by the rules, when you in the end comply with not just laws and regulation, but are complying with laws and regulations which are upcoming on the horizon. And this is the reason why it was for us over the last 9 years since inception so important to focus on regulatory compliance. Not just because we needed to do it, but we already did it even before AML5D, the first crypto license framework in Europe, came into force in 2020. Why? Because it's also a certain topic of self-prevention, of ensuring that risk and fraud activities of certain customers cannot harm you. And therefore, since then, we are sticking to exactly that value proposition. It's a part of our DNA because we not just want to be, but we are the trustworthy player when it comes to crypto and digital assets, actually.
Now we have talked a little bit about, your approach to regulation. I would like to pick up on one of our former Crypto Legends live panel, which was about embedded payments and Web 2.5, and where the former CTO of Wirex, Ross, said that the point of innovation was boring but stable products that increase the value chain of crypto beyond simply buying and selling. I would love to know what you think of that.
Yeah, it's a super valid statement. I think it brings us back two dimensions. One is the different use cases of blockchain technology on the one side, and the other topic about doesn't matter how modern the technology is, there is one common denominator which is highly important for user adoption, which is stabilization and usability. Meaning, if you build tech, it needs to be running and it needs to be running smooth. And even if the markets on the trading side get very, very hot, so people are not interacting or just on any other use cases, you also need to ensure that everything is working out. And I think we've seen in the last years, actually, that a lot of companies and platforms struggled a lot with that topic of technical scalability. So investing a lot into infrastructure and also in these things is definitely highly important.
Going back to my last point on like moving out of the value chain of crypto beyond simply buying and selling, how do you further incentivize a more dynamic value chain for crypto so that we can move out of this speculative adoption stage? And is it something that Bitpanda is trying to accompany, basically?
Sure. So if we speak about Web3, I think the important thing to understand is it's about interaction with smart contracts based on tokens you own. This can be certain blockchain tokens, this can be NFTs, this can be any type of tokens which has some functionality and you want to use for some use case. But in the end, it's always about utilizing and using certain smart contract functionality to utilize it. And this needs to be simplified where we are on the way, but it needs to be even more. So to step out of the dynamic of heavy crypto as, if you want to say so, for just the asset class use case, but to have tokens and really for a Web3 usability, it's just really about user experience. And it's about building trust security also there. For example, whitelisting smart contracts, ensuring that other ones get blacklisted to not be or to not fraud or to less fraudulent activities in that space, but also to give users a very easy way to interact with the new technology without being needing to be an expert in that field.
Yeah, it's all about making it easy, right?
Exactly, accessibility. I think that's the main aspect here.
Yeah. You were just mentioning token, and I actually wanted to ask you about like Bitpanda's native token, whose name is, if I get it correctly, is called BEST. Can you tell us a bit like the role it plays within your platform and basically how the Bitpanda users benefit?
BEST, the Bitpanda ecosystem token, was invented by us in 2019. Why? To give something back to the community. What we've seen back then and still since then is that users of bitpanda.com are actually not just loving the platform, but are loving the service offering. But they also wanted to engage with that even more and also were very eager to actually get more benefits out of that. And we wanted to incentivize them to not just stay with Bitpanda, but also to get the most out of that ecosystem. This is why we invented a loyalty token program back then, which is more active than, or is very active also as of today, which for sure has certain tokenomics. For example, there is a rewards mechanism where people can earn based on the tokens they own, but they also can within the platform, but also across the ecosystem, get a lot of different benefits out of that. And I think the interesting aspect, if we go back to the topic of Web3 actually, is what we learned is also that in the beginning, all these token use cases were all about a loyalty program, some getting more benefits out of it, and are now step by step getting into a world of how can they also can be used on chain for a certain activity. And this is where we as Bitpanda have also a technology project called Pantos, which is all about building interoperability technology to move a token from a layer 1 blockchain A to another layer 1 blockchain. Why? To enable people to also then in the future utilize different smart contracts / Web3 functionality, which probably is in a different ecosystem and not natively built into the ecosystem on that layer 1 chain or the other layer 1 chain. And that's also very important. I think if we come back to the topic of what is needed to get Web3 really going, it's exactly about that, adoption, and this means accessibility.
Super interesting. Thank you for letting us know about Pantos. Last question on Bitpanda before we move to Bitpanda Technology Solutions. But you have been incredibly successful at growing very fast your user base. I remember like some figures, like public figures showing really an incredible growth. Can you tell us a bit like what have been the levels of development, of acquisition then and maybe now? Like what do you see is making the Bitpanda community grow?
Sure. So I think the most important topic, or at least the most active dynamic and driver for us, was always delivering great product and make our customers happy. And at that point, very happy with the product and satisfied that they tell their friends about it. So word of mouth is one of the main drivers, especially in the beginning, for growth and adoption across different user bases in Europe. And this was in countries like Germany, but also in others like France and Spain. And this is, interestingly, until today, one of the main drivers. For sure, you can add certain marketing strategies, you can increase the inflow of new interested users, you can have retention strategies, but we still believe the most important driver for long-term usage and stickiness when it comes to customers and the customer base, which is also very loyal to you and engaged, just simply is a good product offering. And that's what we are mainly focusing on since the inception as a very product-driven company. And that's also what we actively do in the future, to focus exactly on that part. But I think also relevant if we speak as of today, when it's about a great product, it's also not just about, you need to have the assets, the crypto tokens, the people are interested in. It's also about payment options and currencies actually to enable people in a proper way to actually get the money they want to invest into the space on such a platform like Bitpanda.
Yeah, you're preaching someone that is convinced with this topic. Thank you for the wink on payments and currencies. So now we have discussed about Bitpanda. I would love to jump into Bitpanda Technology Solutions and specifically its inception. What made you develop it, but specifically who asked for it initially?
It's a very interesting story because we were like always coming from that idea to give retail users a very easy way to invest into crypto, Bitcoin and other assets. And over the years, we developed technology, a platform, but not just the front end for users, the app, but also a lot of like technical components of the value chain in the back. Why? Because in 2014, when we started, there was nothing more or less out there, right? We always needed to build everything from scratch. If you, as of today, want to start a retail broker for crypto assets, you can more or less buy most of the services off the shelf. So it's a completely different task than back then. So we've built the infrastructure on our own. And there was a certain point in time, a couple of years ago, when we were thinking about, hey, it would be interesting if not just we are the only ones who are interested in using our infrastructure, but also the license and regulatory framework and infrastructure we've built up, but probably also others. And our first partner in that regards was Lydia, a payment app in France, very well known there, who interestingly at exactly that point in time said, we want to build out an investment offering, including also crypto, and started to look out what solution is out there. And I think it was a quite nice partnership, and it was our first partner we had the chance to learn a lot, how suddenly a B2B business works completely different than what you are used on the B2C side. And I believe that was like one of the first steps into the very successful direction where we are today or nowadays, where we see much more traditional banks adopting more and more crypto services and start to offer them to the customers via, for example, Bitpanda technology solutions.
You just mentioned culture, and this is something that, as you know, I have lived at Fidor back in the days, exactly the same path. So from bank to actually service provider to other banks. There has been some challenging times, some great times as well, but I would love for you to share your experience of how has it been basically to shift the culture, or how did you proceed? Did you create two separate organizations, or did you manage to get everything in the same organization?
So as you just said, right, getting a very direct customer engaged, focused company and also organization to suddenly being a much more service-oriented organization and company because you service other partners, B2B-wise. That's a real challenge. That also was a challenge for us. You can also ask a couple of our partners who definitely can tell you that. But they also will ensure you one thing, that since more than a year nowadays, we exactly made the shift very successful. Successful in a way that we are not just service-oriented, but especially we have the topic of having, besides a B2C direct customer business, a very large portion of our business on the B2B side, and get that into the organization and get the organization to understand not just the challenges, but also simply the openness you need to have when working with all different departments from partners. For example, a compliance department, a risk department of a very large incumbent is a completely different beast, probably you can sometimes say, but in the end, a completely different type of organizational type you need to be very capable, but also like feel comfortable with dealing with. And I think what we did very, very successful, we made it possible and succeeded in convincing and explaining blockchain and crypto to such people and colleagues that we were able to take away the fear and the ressentiments these people actually had to let them support internal use cases and let them support starting service offerings for the customers on that side. And that's actually is where I nowadays would very, very comfortably say we are a very mature organization when it comes to B2B servicing model.
Well, it's good to hear. Congratulations. I know it's not easy. So you are mentioning the bank and fintechs and like the dialogues you have had with their different stakeholders to actually like bring them on the path of crypto and convincing them as well of the benefits of offering crypto to their audience. I would love to know what's your opinion, actually, and I'm sure you have one because that's what you're offering, but in having banks and fintech become a vector to crypto adoption, basically.
Sure. I think the important topic is that there are a lot of platforms which enable people over the last years, and especially in the last larger bull market, positive market sentiment, to get into crypto and start trying it out. However, we also need to understand that there's still an even larger portion of society not yet engaged in any way into crypto and also into blockchain. Why? Because their trust relies on completely different players than crypto online platforms, if you want to say so. That trust relies with their traditional bank, with their primary bank, where they probably have the bank account since they were 14 or 16. And we all can see the statistics and numbers about how often Europeans are changing bank accounts. And that hasn't changed even with PSD2 and a lot of payment initiatives from a regulatory perspective. So that is still a very, very low amount of people. Why? Because from my perspective, society and people simply are, especially when it comes to bank and money, they always do not feel quite sure. We have a huge lack of financial education in Europe still across all markets. So people simply feel comfortable once they learned to be customer of a bank. So if the society is not moving to relevant players and platforms which offer crypto and these services, it needs to be the other way around. These services and the technology needs to move where the people are. And for example, banks, but also other online platforms, fintechs, or neobanks are very good enablers to give people the opportunity to very easily start trying it out and get into touch with all these different, with the different asset class crypto and also different service offering. And I think the first use case for these players and these people for sure is, I want to invest into, I want to try it out, crypto. But there will be a lot of different use cases in the future, which much more rely on blockchain functionality, or also can be completely different with tokenized assets and other tokenization-based use cases, actually.
Do you have in mind an example of maybe a traditional bank you're working with that has done this education piece well for indeed the people that are so in love with or not in love, but used to use their bank, not so accustomed to crypto, but giving it a go because in the end their bank is starting pushing it?
Sure. I think what we've seen, we are currently, for example, in a project with Raiffeisen, a very large Central Eastern European banking group, and with one of the banks there where we are doing this project. What we definitely saw is that it starts within that organization, actually, where you need to educate. So it's not just, you need to give the customer enough education. It already starts with the internal employees, because they were in a situation where they got told over years, you don't engage with crypto, that's nothing we as a bank want to be associated with, so you should not be. So it's a lot about, as I said, probably back to the cultural topic, getting people to understand what it is about, what the impact of the underlying technology is, and how interesting that and how much potential for the long term has. Then not just get the internal employees educated, and then also get to the larger customer base on all the different, back to the topic in the beginning, omni-channel touch points, for example, such a banking group has, which is different also to what nowadays crypto platforms are used.
Yeah, no, it makes sense, and good to know that Raiffeisen is making steps towards pushing crypto to their users. One of the reasons why crypto is stuck in the speculative adoption phase is because, as my co-founder Adam mentioned, the opportunities for real-world spending are for the moment unfortunately limited. Do you think it is fair to say that adequately integrating banks and fintech will offer a more complete value chain in the crypto ecosystem?
So first of all, 100%. Also, I totally understand where Adam is coming from. And I think there, as I said, are these three main use cases: crypto assets as an asset class, then blockchain tokens as a payment vehicles, that can be stablecoins, that can be CBDCs, and that's actually completely underutilized still from a potential perspective. So also people are not using it that much, and therefore the adoption is very low. And the third topic, which is now upcoming, especially also with our own regulatory framework in Europe, which is actually quite cool, is tokenization and tokenizing assets and asset classes. And I think one aspect which is still always relevant to state compared to other continents, in Europe we actually have regulatory frameworks which now get into place or are already in place with MiCA, with the DLT pilot regime and others, which enable not just companies like us, but also banks to get regulatory clearness and clarity about how to cope with these use cases, because that's normally the showstopper for innovation for such players. So this also will drive adoption across the space, from my perspective.
Yeah, no, totally. And from what we can see at Fiat Republic over the past few months, MiCA is, I would say, a definitely competitive edge of Europe towards other geographies when it comes to, yes, putting a framework around crypto, but then encouraging innovation, protecting end users, while allowing business to make business. So it's actually quite exciting. We always finish Crypto Legends with talking about the future tales of crypto. We know what banks look like now and are seeing the kinds of challenges neobanks and open banks are building upon. You're already servicing neobanks such as Lydia, as you have mentioned earlier. Can you tell us what does a crypto-integrated bank look like? Paint the picture of the neobank evolution and the next step that crypto integration can provide. What are you dreaming of when at Bitpanda Technology Solutions you're creating new services for your tier 1 and tier 2 banks?
I think probably where to start with, right? It's not just about crypto, it's about blockchain technology. And as soon as a new bank, a fintech, but especially an incumbent, is looking into, okay, how and where do I start? There's just one angle, which is custody. How do you technically enable any custody service can be crypto tokens, can be payment tokens, what we talked about, or also can be any other form of token for tokenized assets or NFT. That's like the basics, but it's just the beginning, right? And if we think about how can such a banking offering, service offering based on blockchain technology look like, there are so many different ways. First, it for sure can enable customers to interact with crypto, to not just buy it, but to withdraw it, to use smart contract functionality, to stake coins, to actually use also DeFi services across their banks, so ensure that there is a regulated gateway into DeFi and also a regulated gateway to ensure that whatever you want to withdraw or get back from the DeFi activity is fully regulatory-wise okay and also fine for any authority. The other topic is payments, meaning payment rails between customers, payment rails between banks and customers, and payment rails on an even holistic level. The topic of digital euro, also a very interesting initiative to look further after in the European space. So this will be in the future even larger area actually, especially now in a positive interest rate environment. There's suddenly a stablecoin, euro stablecoins, and we will see a couple of projects in the next couple of months. This year still coming live in Europe. We'll suddenly try to gain market share from the US dollar denominated stablecoins because a lot of European volume, which is traded in crypto, is US dollar denominated, even that it subsequently should not be necessary because there's simply no established euro stablecoin project yet, I would say.
Yeah. And last question, but since you mentioned stablecoin, how does Bitpanda take part in it, basically? Are you collaborating with some stablecoins?
We are a tech provider. We are providing a technology for blockchain interaction. And if a partner simply is eager to have certain stablecoins to interact with them, or also to want and support the digital euro, once the technical specification is out, we definitely will enable these partners to do that. So I think the important topic here is, back to the beginning, custody is the basics, but being able to build all these services either out of one hand or out of a best-of-breed setup with the service providers needed, that's exactly our strength. And we can deliver and enable partners also to cope with stablecoins and payment tools.
Thank you so much, Lukas. I really enjoyed this discussion. I'm sure our audience will too.